it's time to get to Stranger Things season 1, our overview. We did the recap. That was fun. But this is what we're just going to kind of dig a little deeper into. Like I said earlier, global phenomenon. Overnight. It was an overnight success. Season 1 dropped in 2016, and I remember that weekend. I remember I was working for Big Boy's Neighborhood in LA, and I remember all of us start texting each other about this Stranger Things show.
Oh, yeah. I remember that too.
And that's what we talked about. And it was crazy. And it was this out of nowhere show that had a fictional town, Hawkins, Indiana. It's actually filmed in Jackson, Georgia. Have you ever been to Jackson, Georgia?
You know what? I'm not sure. I've spent some time in my childhood. But again, I grew up in Indianapolis. And so we went down to Alabama, Florida when I was a kid for vacations and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure which area we were in, but I remember what it looked like. I remember the landscape. And really, I mean, other than like when you get into like the marshes of Florida and like that kind of look, it's still very reminiscent of my childhood in Indianapolis. Like I still look at it and say, that feels like my childhood.
I'll just say it. If you haven't been to Jackson, Georgia, but you've been to any small town suburb in the 80s, you've been to Jackson, Georgia, because that's what it was. It looked so familiar to all of us until Will Byers vanishes. And then things get a little wild. You know, Eleven showed up. She's been ripped out of a sci-fi novel. The whole thing starts coming down to where it's Steven Spielberg and Stephen King colliding with a John Carpenter synth-filled soundtrack, really. And what 80s kid, like seriously, what 80s kid was not going to get caught up with all this nostalgia and this feeling, you know?
Yeah, a couple of things stood out to me. When I first saw it, I remember 2016. I remember we were just moved back to Utah, and we were in like a tiny little 2-bedroom apartment while we were trying to sell one house and buy another house. So we were just kind of like crammed in. So there's not much to do. I was there with a 2-year-old taking care of my son most of the time. And and then that show came on. I was like, yes, something to watch. Like I was excited. And my first thought was very reminiscent of my favorite show, X-Files. I was like, okay, we're talking about weird paranormal things. I'm loving this, the vibe. And rewatching it for the recap too, the same thing that struck me was, that 80s nostalgia, everything. They did such a good job of not making it kitschy 80s. Like, I know you watch like Meet the Goldbergs sitcom, and they really kind of like play up the 80s. I mean, everything's a little bit brighter and a little bit more like big hair, and they really play it up, kind of like if you were to have an 80s party and everybody dresses up. So they really go all out. This show didn't do that. It was very much like, okay, this is familiar to me. Joy Spires' home with the wood paneling and the old couches. Hopper's asleep on his like old, what is that, like knitted couch?
Yeah. You get the rotary phone.